Okay, so remember, please, tomorrow night, as you have the day off, I'm asking you to read. Yes? Addis? Page 44, 45, 46, 47. 48 and the top of 49. Okay, so guys, these Federalist Papers were written in support of what?
Federalism.
The new Constitution, which created a federal system of government. Yes?
Yes.
So we're going to dive into those and have a good discussion on those on Wednesday, right?
Cool. Is this more points?
Right? Or I'm going to give you a quiz.
Wait, is this big? Is this more points?
This is a participatory discussion worth points. How good the discussion is will determine how well the class does overall. Yes?
That's good.
You need some points?
Yeah.
You will after that second test. And I'm still working on the first one. Just give me time. Everybody's going to start seeing like grades go in periodically. 3 more went in this morning. All right. Grace, welcome back. Did you watch my videos? Did you hear me talking to you? Okay. So today, guys, we're going to look at the basics of the Constitution. This is where we're at in your notes. Basics of the Constitution right here. Got it right here for you. Okay. Now, here's the fact of the matter, guys. First 3 articles are the first 3 branches of government. So when you look at this outline, there's 4 columns. First 3 columns are the 3 branches. First 2 columns of the 4 columns is the legislative branch. So there's a lot more on the legislature. But guys, here's the thing. Section 4, Section 5, and Section 6 of this class will be breaking down each one of these branches. Okay, so I'm not going to go into great detail over them today, because we will do that later. You know what they are. Legislative branch is Article 1. It's a bicameral legislature with a House. How many members are in the United States House of Representatives? You have the Senate, which 2 each. You get 100 of those, and they control the purse. The executive branch, Article 2, the president and the vice president, cabinet departments, or as I like to call them, executive departments, they carry out the law or execute the law. In other words, they control the sword. Now, Article 3 is very short in this document. Basically, they describe the Supreme Court. And I guess during the 3 months that they wrote the Constitutional Convention, they didn't have enough time to come up with the other courts. So they said Congress will create all courts beneath the Supreme Court. So over the years, as we've added states and so forth, we've had to add more federal courts over time. So now we're at 13 circuit courts and 94 district courts, federal district courts. Okay, so we'll get into all that later on. And then you get to Article 4, and this is where I'm going to pick up today and give you some details over Article 4 of the Constitution. Now, if you have not read your learning intentions today, okay, they say students will learn about Article 1 through 4, with 4 being underlined in the Constitution. Then you ask yourself, I can describe the full faith and credit clause and the privileges and immunity clause in Article 4 of the Constitution. I can explain those on the test. What does that mean? Explain. Write about. Okay? So this is something you're going to be writing about on the test. Okay? That's the handy dandy things with the success criteria. Yes? Now, apparently, other teachers, and maybe you can help me with this, I don't know. Are other teachers having you help them write these? Anybody have a teacher that's doing that? Apparently, we're supposed to have students help us write the success criteria. I don't know how they're supposed to do that when they don't know what's on the test. Yeah, I'm not doing that. I don't know, maybe I will do that. I don't know how I would do that, but.
Give us the test at the beginning.
Right?
Yeah, show us all the tests.
Yes. Might as well give us the final. So it's,
Final's easy. Huh? If you have fewer than 4 absences.
Okay, I feel like the
Is it
absence thing,
4?
like, what if you have an A in the class, but you're double
This is what I
absent?
was praying about, Liam.
Well, I'm thinking about something else.
Is it 4?
I don't know if that's gonna happen.
I have no control over that, Liam.
Like, no discretion whatsoever?
None. Zero. Zip. Now, I do have discretion on whether you take the final or not. And my discretion is you gotta have an A or a B. The school's discretion is 3 absences or fewer.
I have an error. 3 hours.
You gotta, if you have more than 3 absences, you gotta take it. Yeah.
School.
Yeah, that's the school thing.
It's unexcused.
Now, I have to follow the school rules.
But the school never said what the final has to be, right?
What?
The school never said what the final has to be, right? Like, what is the name of Mr. Ebride's framework?
Question, real question maybe? I'm the professor. I make the rules. And I don't work for Newman.
He works for friends. He's a friend.
That's right.
He's a fella, thank you.
Quaker. Okay. All right. What are we talking about? Article 4 of the Constitution, which is interstate and federal relations. Did you write that down? All right. So now write down the full faith and credit clause. That's what we're going to talk about first. Okay. And I think I've probably mentioned this to you before already, but just in case I haven't, I need to go over it again, especially since you're writing about it on the test. This is a Kansas issued driver's license. Okay? I can use this driver's license in the state of Kansas. I can also use it in the other 49 states. Any of the states. This is valid. Why? Because of the full faith and credit clause in the Constitution. Now, I was married, and I have a marriage license. I was married in one of the most corrupt state capitals of the 50s, Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Now, even though Baton Rouge is notorious for corruption, Kansas still has to recognize my marriage license from Baton Rouge. You understand? Death certificates, contracts. These are all things that fall under the the full faith and credit clause. Now, you might remember when we talked about gay marriage, when Massachusetts was the first state to allow for gay marriage, and people are like, well, what if those people move to my state? They're like, we don't have to recognize that, do we? And Congress said, you might have to. And so they passed a law called the Defense of Marriage Act saying that one state didn't have to recognize another state's gay marriage. What's wrong with that law? It's a violation of Article 4 of the Constitution. And did Congress know that when they passed it? Yes. Did they pass it anyways? Yes. How long did it take the Supreme Court to overturn that law as unconstitutional? A long time. Okay. It's interesting, isn't it? Okay. So, what else falls under this? What about me? I'm a teacher. I have a teacher's license in the state of Kansas. Can I take my teacher's license and go teach in any other 50 states? Yes. Now, some may recognize it, but there may be some other classes that I might need to take. I had to take Kansas history to be a history teacher in Kansas. So if I move to Florida, maybe I take Florida history, something like that. Yeah, so like law, if you're practicing law in Kansas, you got to get licensed in another state. Yes? Now, I don't know if you have to retake the entire bar. Is the bar different state to state?
I thought it was
is a different state.
There's different laws.
Yeah, definitely there are different laws, so you're gonna have to know those. You're gonna have to get licensed, same thing with doctors. Yes? Real estate agents? Okay, you're gonna have to get licensed in those other states, okay? But these are official documents of the state, okay? They are valid. Okay, does everybody understand the full faith and credit clause? Time to move on to privileges and immunities. Okay, write that down, privileges and immunities,
Number 5.
however you want to put
Or is
it.
it part?
Oh, it's still part of it, we're still Article 4 all day. Article 4, privileges and immunities. Okay, so, everybody in here is a resident of the state of Kansas. And as a resident of the state of Kansas, you have certain privileges, certain immunities. Okay? How many of you guys were not born in Kansas? 4 of us. Where were you born?
Nebraska.
Omaha. And Texas. What province? Puna? Lily's from. Who's the other one? Camp Lejeune. Did you drink the water? Have you heard the ads?
Happened to the water.
It's all like messed up, and then people are getting like cancer, like third legs and stuff.
Third leg.
Well, I don't know exactly what it is. People are like,
Yeah, Liam, third legs, that's what it is. It's the most common side effect. Third legs.
It was for dramatic effect. It was called hypertension.
Camp Lejeune. Holy cow. Claire busting that out. I've heard that damn ad so many times. If you ever lived in Camp Lejeune, you never heard this?
No.
How many guys have heard the Camp Lejeune ads?
No.
You could be entitled to compensation.
Oh, wait.
Yeah, it's a class action lawsuit. It's kind of a good joke, too. Like, you're talking to somebody like Liam, and you're like, hey, you by chance, did you ever live at Camp Lejeune? You get it? Okay.
I thought it was total mystery.
Thank you. You guys can borrow that if you want.
Okay.
All right. Now, okay. Yeah, people don't move here generally. They move away. Okay, so, but anyhow, if I ask that same question in Arizona, if I ask that same question in Florida or Texas, be a lot of hands go up. So all of my classes today, government, 4 of them, that's a total of like 8 people that were not born in the state of Kansas, and 2 of them were born in China. So,
Who's the other one?
So we doubled.
Emma Ewing.
Oh.
Okay. And 1 was born in Vietnam. Yeah. Now, here's the cool thing about this country, guys. You can pack your stuff right now and move to any of the 50 states. You don't have to tell anybody. You don't have to ask permission. You just freaking go. Just go. It's pretty awesome. Now, I've lived in 6 states, so I've had some dealings with privileges and immunities in my life. So as a resident of Kansas, guys, you all have the privilege to vote in the state of Kansas. Okay? Now, if you move to another state, how long must you live there in order to vote? Listen, since there's 50 states, they all have different laws. Okay, but most states require you to live in that state for 30 days before you can vote. Okay? Now, this helps prevent what? People jumping across borders to vote, yes? Border ruffians, jayhawkers, bushwhackers, guys heard of the Bushwhackers?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, the Bushwhackers were from Missouri, came over to Kansas. So if you ever find yourself at the age of 21 or older on the Florida Gulf Coast, there's a drink called the Bushwhacker. Okay? If you ever find yourself on the beach eating raw oysters, order yourself a Bushwhacker. Okay? They're outstanding.
What's in a bushwhacker?
It's kind of like a chocolate shake with rum in it. Bacardi. It'll knock you down. Okay? Now, so it's a famous drink in the South, the Bushwhacker. Okay? But anyhow, so 30 days is pretty typical. Now, anybody going out of state to college? Okay, going to Indiana. Where you going? Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Florida, Boston. Where you going? They let you in? Where you going again, Julia? Where? Same place? Oh my, poor thing. Where in Florida are we going? Miami, University of Miami. Jacob. University of? You have to pay out of state tuition. Where you going? You got to pay out of state? You do? Don't we have a deal with them?
I thought it was.
Oklahoma State, we have a deal with them. Called the I-35. Have you not looked into that?
I mean, they offered me an our state scholarship.
You got nothing. They're taking care of you?
Yeah.
Good for you. Peter, where are you going? Dallas. Where the right wingers live. It is. It's one of the most conservative universities there is. Way more conservative than Notre Dame. Okay. Yeah. They give you a scholarship. That's a private
Hoping
school.
for it.
Huh?
I'm trying.
Just trying. Yeah. So, we do have this thing with this corridor, 35 corridor. I think it actually runs down into Texas, right? Where you can get in-state tuition, you have a certain GPA. Okay. Otherwise, you got to go pay out-of-state tuition. Okay. And I have some experience with that a couple of times. First time, I went to Georgia for school my last 2 years, got a business degree, and I had to pay out of state. I got student loans for about 2 years, about $15,000 in student loans. Then I moved back to Florida and never use that business degree. And ran a small business with my dad. That was a failure. And I decided that I want to go back to school, become a teacher, history teacher, and a baseball coach. And I met this woman at the beach who would become my future bride. She lived in Louisiana. After 10 months of dating long distance, I moved to Louisiana from Florida, about a 4-hour drive. She lived in Baton Rouge. Okay. Any of you guys Garth Brooks fans? I think it's Garth Brooks.
Yeah.
That song about
My dad was
going to Louisiana. Yeah, see my girl.
on that route.
Calling Baton Rouge. That's what it is. That was me. 4-hour drive. And she got a job offer in Wichita, Kansas. I moved to Louisiana to be with her. I rented a room at one of her friend's house, about a block away from the campus of LSU. I was getting ready to enroll at LSU to become a teacher. She got a job offer in Wichita, Kansas. I'm like, where's that? In Kansas. Where's that? So, Koch Industries flew her up for an interview, flew her up for another interview, and I'm like, uh-oh, she's going to leave me. And so, third trip, she said, I'm going up to look for a house. And I'm like, I'm going with you. And I asked her to marry me while we were up here. And she said, yes. So in December of 95, we moved to Wichita, Kansas. Okay. And I enrolled at Wichita State University in January of 96. Dang, was it cold. So cold when we got here. And so I paid out of state tuition. Then I got a job. And I worked 20, 25 hours a week at Tricon Global Restaurants, which is owned by Pepsi. That's Taco Bell, KFC, and Pizza Hut. Tricon Global Restaurants. And I was a graphic artist. And I was designing stuff at Tricon Global Restaurants. And then I started working with some people. We have any artists in here that are good at art? Like to draw? I can't do that. So I'm working with these graphic artists and they're creating stuff from scratch. And I'm like, I'll never be that good. As long as I do this, I'll never be that good. So it was a good call to go back and become a teacher. And so I'm like, I go to school for a year, working towards my education degree. And I enrolled the following year. Wichita State tells me I have to pay out of state tuition again. I'm like, hold up, listen. My wife, well, my future wife is here. She's got a job. Okay. I'm working, not full time, but I'm working 20, 25 hours. I'm paying taxes. And I'm coming to Kansas to get a Kansas teaching license that's only valid in Kansas. Why would I move here from Louisiana to get a Kansas teaching license only to take it back to Louisiana where it's no good? I'm planning on staying. They're like, well, you're going to have to appeal this decision. So I appealed the decision, took it all the way to the top, and they said, no, you have to pay out of state tuition. You know what I said? Bye-bye. And I went to Newman. And I finished at Newman. And I did so a semester early because Newman had a faster track. So I went to Newman, said, screw you to Wichita State, okay? You're not getting my money. I'm going to pay more to go to Newman than out of state tuition, okay? But I finished early, student taught here at Bishop Carroll for Dr. Finkeldye when he was a teacher here. And then they had a job opening. Okay, now, I had to pay a lot that year of college. So, I had to stick the state of Kansas back. So, people asked me after I got a job teaching here, like 2 years after I got a job teaching here, Mr. Ebright, why do you still have Florida tags on your car? Well, let me tell you a story about out-of-state tuition. Okay, so $60 to redo my tags in Florida. Just called my dad, said, hey, Dad, redo my tags. I'm going to keep driving as long as I can with Florida tags because it cost me like $300 to get tags in Kansas. So, got some of my money back. Is that a good story?
Yeah.
It's terrible. Okay. All right. I got engaged on the 10th floor of the Marriott out east. It's out there on Webb Road, big 10-story Marriott, 10th floor. She said yes. Okay. And then we got married in Baton Rouge, so our people could come. Yeah.
What was the business with your dad?
We ran a small publishing company. We lived near the beach. When I was in high school, my dad was the head of the baseball booster club. We have BCPO that does all sports together. We have baseball, BCPO. My dad was on it, and they do. You guys know the program that you do, the program at the beginning of the year that they hand out for $1 at the games. Oh yeah. You know the program's got ads in it. So my dad the book for the baseball team, and he went out and was selling ads, and he liked it. He's like, this is kind of funny, like talking to people. And so when I graduated, he started his own business on the beach doing like tourist guidebooks where he would sell ads to like restaurants and hotels and stuff like that and put a map in it with all the shopping centers and all the restaurants. And people would pay to put ads in it. And he had a little business doing that. And so after I graduated from college and moved to Atlanta during a recession, I couldn't find a very good job. I was doing sales too. My mom said, hey, your dad's going to shut this thing down unless you want to come home and run it with him for a couple of years and see if you can make it happen. I'm like, all right, I'm coming home. So I ran that business with my dad for a couple of years. We didn't make any money. We lost money and then got audited by the state of Florida. And they told us we had to pay all these sales taxes that we didn't know we were supposed to pay, and we're like, well, we don't have that. So I guess there's no more Perdido Publishing Incorporated. We shut it down, and I learned how to do graphic arts to save money, because I designed the ads. And so I got a job at a newspaper designing ads. Then I got a job with a print shop in Louisiana. And then I got a job here. And that, you know, I was making, this was 95, 96. I was making like $12 an hour, working part-time. This isn't going anywhere. So now I'm making less than $12 an hour. But it's steady. Okay, it's got a 401k. Right? All right, sorry. What are we talking about? Privileges and immunity. Now, okay, so what other privileges and immunities we have here? Guys, if you are driving, say you're not from Kansas, you're driving through Kansas, can the state of Kansas treat you differently because you're not a resident of the state? No, they have to treat you, have immunities, okay? Now, you are expected to know the laws of the states that you travel to. Does anybody in here have subwoofers in their vehicle? You're that guy?
Of course I'm that guy.
Okay. You guys ever feel violated, like when you're at a stoplight or at a drive-through and somebody's got their,
Yes.
No. and you're like, your body is vibrating and you have no recourse? You hate that? I thought only old people hated that.
I hate it.
It sounds so good though. It sounds so.
Somebody in a hurts. Like I'm just
Yes. It's annoying. Now, did you know in the city limits of Wichita, if you can hear that music from 50 yards away, you can get a ticket for that. So if you're traveling through Wichita and you get pulled over for that, you're expected to know the laws in Wichita. Now, when you talk about guns, guys, every state has different gun laws. So in Kansas, guys, you can have a loaded shotgun, a loaded rifle in your car, and a handgun on the dash. Loaded, okay? Try driving in Illinois with that. You're going to jail. Now, you can get a conceal and carry permit in Illinois. Chances are, if you're from Kansas, you don't have an Illinois permit. So once you get to the border of Illinois, you need to stop your vehicle. You need to unload your weapon. You need to try and take it apart as much as you can and put it in your trunk. Because if you get caught with a gun in your car in Illinois, you're going to jail if you don't have a permit. You understand? So you are obligated to know the laws in each state that you travel to. You're going to go hiking, Montana, Wyoming, something like that. You want to take a gun for protection against bears, okay, or mountain lions. You need to know the laws in those states. Yeah. Murder can be both federal or state. So if you murder somebody that works for the federal government, it's a federal crime. If you murder somebody possibly in a federal building, it's a federal crime. Rob a bank, that's federal crime. Otherwise, they're generally state. Now, if it's a hate crime, sometimes they have federal hate crimes for murder. Okay, so that could be both. Okay. Now, speaking of crime, you take that same gun and you go over and you rob the liquor store, the ABC liquor store at Ridge and Central with your gun. Okay, and then the cops are chasing you. You're like, I get to I-35 and I'm headed south. I'm gonna try and make it to Oklahoma, outrun the cops. Now, can the Kansas cops follow you into Oklahoma? Yeah, they have a driver's license that's good in all 50 states. Can they arrest you in Oklahoma? No, they cannot. They don't have jurisdiction there.
It doesn't matter. It's like, that's like saying that if I leave the city of Wichita, they can still follow you and arrest you.
That's in the state of Kansas.
They can follow you.
They can follow you. They can't arrest you there. They're going to call ahead, Liam, to the Oklahoma cops. And they're going to say, we're chasing this guy. He's headed your direction. You could stop him. Please do. They stop him. And they turn him back over to the Kansas cops that followed them. No. Need extradition. And the cops don't do extradition. You know who does extradition? The governor does it. So the governor of Kansas will call the governor of Oklahoma and ask that you be returned to the state of Kansas. That's your privileges and immunities. Liam, you looking it up?
Yeah, I am.
Okay, go ahead. Check. Now, what if you make it to Mexico? You good? Do we have an extradition treaty with Mexico? Yeah. Yes. Now, if you get to Canada, say you commit first-degree murder in Texas, and you flee to Canada, Texas wants to charge you with the death penalty. Canada will not extradite you. You're facing the death penalty. Texas will have to take that off the table. Tell Canada that life without parole is what we're seeking, and they'll return you, extradite you.
If they've been charged with,
They can't switch it back, because then Canada would never trust to do that again, you know what I mean? Now, some countries, I heard you say it, Philip, some countries we don't have extradition treaties with. Now, you might be better off in a U.S. prison than, say, North Korea or Iran. Snowden is in Russia. Now, I know that Russia and the United States do work together to some extent on extradition, but in the case of Snowden, Russia has refused to extradite. And I did talk about Snowden in my other classes. Freddie Jackson, do you know who Edward Snowden is? Did I not talk about it?
You
You
did.
guys? A little bit.
he's the guy who dropped all that stuff in Dick.
So Edward Snowden was working for the NSA as a contractor. And he was given some pretty high clearance, security clearances. And he stumbled across a program that the U.S. government had called PRISM. Basically, what this program, the software program does, is it casts a net over the internet. So any email, and what it looks for is for key words, key phrases, like bomb, tax, certain names, certain phrases. And if it sees that phrase in that email, PRISM grabs it and puts it in a file. It looks for Google searches, okay? Like how to make a pipe bomb. That's going over here, okay? Now, they don't look at it right then, okay? They track phone numbers. So if you make a phone call, an international phone call to Syria, they're going to track your phone number and that phone number and how long that call lasted. And that's going to go into this file in PRISM. Now, if your name comes up in an investigation or something else, they can go back and find these files. Okay? Now, in order for the government to surveil you, they either have to have a warrant or probable cause. They're supposed to go in front of a judge. Yes? They weren't doing that. We have something called the Fourth Amendment. So Edward Snowden stumbled across this working for the NSA. He was like 27 years old. He was engaged to be married. Had his whole life in front of him. A really smart whiz. Okay? He made the decision to download those files. and destroy his life. He fled, got on a plane to Hong Kong, and he called a couple of American journalists, one of them named Glenn Greenwald. Give me a second, Liam, you can counter me. Okay. And so Greenwald went to Hong Kong to the hotel. And, basically, he told him all this stuff that was going on. So now he was not the only one that knew. And then Greenwald and another journalist from Europe started exposing the government for what they had been doing. Obviously, Snowden was worried about his life. I mean, he was worried about being captured. So he fled to Russia from Hong Kong. He's been in exile there ever since. So depending on how you view this situation, either Edward Snowden is a hero or he's a traitor. If he is returned to the United States, he will be put on trial for treason. But he exposed the U.S. government for violating our rights. Okay? The Supreme Court said the government can't do this without a warrant. Okay? The head of the NSA was hauled before Congress and asked point blank, under oath, is the National Security Agency spying on the American people? His response, under oath, was not to my knowledge. Now, you know what that's called? That's called perjury. Did he ever go to jail for that? No. Okay? And I can tell you his name if you want to know. His name is James Clapper. Liam, where did I go wrong?
Pursuit is also known as hot pursuit or immediate pursuit, and it means the police officers have the right to conduct a continuous pursuit beyond their own jurisdiction in order to apprehend a suspect.
To apprehend. Now, okay, once they apprehend them, can they take them back across state lines, or do they have to be extradited?
Oh, I don't know about that part, but I know they can continue, like, let's say you rob a bank and you keep going into Oklahoma and KHP's following you, they can still follow you and arrest you.
Any guys ever see the movie Smokey and the Bandit? Sheriff Buford T. Justice? Okay. You guys would like that. He chases this guy all over the country, the sheriff from Texas. Yes. So, thank you, Liam.
Anytime.
I don't believe they can bring him back across state lines without extradition.
I don't know about that, but I know they can consider.
Well, you need to look that up.
I got you.
Thank you, Liam, for straightening me out.
I got you.
Okay. So, extradition. The other things Article 4 does here. We started with 13 states, yes? They had to put in a plan for adopting new states if that happened. So before a state is a state, generally a state is a territory, or it's a state, yes? Does anybody remember this number? How many people had to live in a territory before it could become a state?
2007.
450. 2, 3,
500.
45,000.
60,000. Okay, before Kansas was a state, it was a territory. Now, if you want a territory to become a state, you got 60,000 people. You need to have a representative government, okay, where the people get to choose the leaders of that state. So Puerto Rico could become a state. Yes? Guam, American Samoa, American Virgin Islands. First, they got to have 60,000 people, representative government, which all of them do. Then they apply to become a state, and Congress decides. It is. We could go to 54, 51, 54. Okay, looks like we're out of time. I've got to finish this up with some obligations, but you guys read tomorrow night. Okay?
40 to 44.
Page 44,
44 to 49.
yes.